But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. Let me tell you about my great God. Hey guys, Pastor Tim here. Hope you're ready to get your day started off in God's Word. We are on Genesis chapter 25, almost fully into the life of Isaac. We do get the very tail end of the life of Abraham. In this chapter, we find out that after Sarah passed away, he took another wife, and I think he had 6 more sons, at least, or 6 more children. But none of these had the same inheritance or promises attached to them as Isaac. So the Bible specifically mentions that when Abraham was about to pass away at the age of 175, that all his inheritance was given unto Isaac, because that was the promised son, that was according to the covenant made with God. But he still gave gifts and so forth unto his other children and sent them away. And so we go from Abraham to the transition to Isaac. We know last chapter he married his wife Rebekah, but we notice that they kind of have the same problems and obstacles in their life as Isaac's parents did, Abraham and Sarah. All right, remember when we first meet Sarah, it said that she is barren, and we see here about Rebekah, the same thing is said. Now, it's not at the same old age as Sarah, and she definitely was not barren for as long as Sarah, but for 20 years after they were married, they were not able to have children. It wasn't, Isaac met and married Rebekah when he was about 40 years old, and it wasn't until he was 60 that he finally had his twin boys. And this is kind of where I get my main point from this chapter. It's just interesting to notice that the children experiencing the same trials that the parents faced in Abraham and Sarah handled it in a much different way. Remember, when Abraham and Sarah were faced with their barrenness, eventually Sarah went to scheming. She started to lose faith, so she concocted this plan with Hagar, her handmaiden, who we get brief mention of in this chapter because we see Ishmael and Isaac come together once again to bury Abraham. But anyway, back to Sarah and Abraham. When they saw that they were barren, they concocted this scheme in which Hagar would have a son with Abraham, thinking that that would some way bring about a fulfillment of God's promise. Obviously, no, that wasn't the case. That is a picture of the works of the flesh, not the works of grace that God intended in the birth of Isaac himself, not Ishmael. And so unlike their parents, their predecessors, Isaac and Rebekah, we see in this chapter, handle it in a much different way, and they go unto the Lord and they plead unto him, and God visits Rebekah, and she is now able to have children for Isaac. And we see the first 2, she has twins, baby boys. I guess they were fighting in the womb or something, because she prayed unto God for, why is this happening unto me? And God tells her it's because these 2 children will represent 2 different nations that will come from you. All right, Jacob and Esau. And he also says this particular thing, and it's important to remember as we go forward in the lives of Jacob and Esau. He says unto Rebekah, the older or the elder shall serve the younger, meaning God has the promised covenant of the great nation, of the future Messiah. All those things was going to go through the youngest son. So it's important to remember that, however, because we see, although they did not scheme to bring forth these children like Sarah did, there's going to be a lot of scheming later on in their lives when it comes to Esau and Jacob. Because one thing, Rebekah, she loved Jacob, and Isaac loved Esau, and this caused conflict in the home, both parents having their own favorite kids. This is obviously a good lesson in the dangers of favoritism, all right? But Isaac, being the head of the house, the spiritual leader, should have known better than to reject God's initial plan of laying the promise and the birthright and all those blessings to go through the youngest son, not through Esau, even though he loved Esau more. Now, before I get too deep into it, because we're going to get to this in the next chapter, we finish off the chapter with the first incident between Esau and Jacob. Esau was a hunter. Jacob, he stayed at home more often and just kind of kept that up. And Jacob, we see him fulfill his namesake, which means deceiver or supplanter. And we see him trick Esau into selling his birthright, which in essence, the blessings and the promises that come through the birthright were already promised unto Jacob. All right, so he didn't have to concoct this scheme himself, but we see him trick Esau, and we see Esau's own attitude towards his birthright and those spiritual things was that he despised it to begin with. He had no such desire to hold on to it. He would rather give it away simply to have some food in the moment of hunger. All right, but we're going to get more into Esau and Jacob as the chapters go on. This is kind of just an introduction to them. So that's all I got for today's chapter, guys. I hope you read through it. Write down things that stick out to you. Tell somebody about it, and hope you have a great day. Stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.